Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig Sports' the MLB DFS Core Pick video, Core Pick live stream for today, April 25th, also Tuesday. Going to be a pretty interesting slate today. I believe 9 games in total. But in this video, what we'll be doing, going over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they turned out, talking a little bit about weather spots for tonight's main slate overall. Then going over to the FanDuel side, talking about the core picks that I do have for today. Going to be a pretty interesting day just all together. And then last but not least, we'll go to the bottom half of my cheat sheet and talk about the top GPP teams to stack for today. Cheat sheet is available up on YouTube under the community tab. It's up on Facebook. It's up on Twitter. It's going to be up on the Patreon page. So I got to get that up there for today, as well as the MLB DFS notes. If you're interested in that, be sure to check that out at patreon.com/Coach Craig Sports. Link down in the description as well. Small monthly donation there. Monday through Friday, you get MLB DFS main slate notes. So hitter versus pitcher matchups, whether or not I would play pitchers, avoid them, kind of if they're a risky play, just a lot of information in general, how they did versus the team, last season, this season, everything else like that. So a lot of good information when we're building lineups and just a little bit of time saving for you guys just in general. But without further ado, we'll get into that recap of yesterday. Not the greatest day overall. So we had Spencer Strider at pitcher, $11,200. He got to 73 points. He was awesome. He was the top overall pitcher on the slate by about 20 points, which obviously was kind of what we expected if we're being completely honest. But a lot of ownership to him. So over half the field played Spencer Strider yesterday. So you had to find different ways to get a little bit contrarian there from that. At first base, we played Luke Voigt, $2,400. He had some pretty good history in the past versus Matthew Boyd. Only got 3 points yesterday, so to give him a push, he wasn't anybody that completely killed us, but he wasn't anybody that helped us at the same time. Early on in the day, I had Nolan Arenado as one of my core picks. Unfortunately, he did not end up starting yesterday. I pivoted over to Jose Miranda since, he hit pretty well last time against the Yankees and Johnny Brito. $2,500, just got to 3 points, give him a push again as well. Over 3, but he did have the one walk. So not the greatest day hitter-wise yesterday, if we're being completely honest. Then behind him, Mike Trout at $3,900, only got 6.2 points. 1 for 6 yesterday, got one single and a run scored. Kind of unfortunate there in a good matchup against Ken Waldichuk. The Angels stack, it did actually pay off, but it was unfortunately not the two guys that were in my core picks. So Mike Trout was a miss at 6.2. We had Taylor Ward at $2,900. At 3 points to give him a push. He went 0 for 5 with 1 walk. So not the greatest day for those two guys. If you got to some Brandon Drury, looks pretty good. If you got to a couple other Angels players, looked pretty good for you guys as well. So not the greatest day in terms of core picks yesterday. You're going to have that sometimes with MLB as kind of one of the more larger variance sports, but hoping to have more good days than bad days. Obviously, that is the goal at the end of the day. Kind of moving over to weather for today. In terms of the main slate, does not look like there is any weather concerns for the main slate. If that does change throughout the day, we'll leave it down in the comments section. For those of you who don't know, I also coach 9th grade baseball. We have a game going on later today. About 4:30 is when we're starting that off. So we'll try to get as many starting lineups out as many weather updates or anything else like that prior to that time. If anything comes out later in that, it might be a little bit more tricky to get to, but should have most of that information by that point in time, just in general. So no real weather concerns at this point in time. We'll move over to FanDuel. Let me get that pulled up real quick and kind of talk about the core picks that I do have for today. Pretty interesting slate. Probably a slate. Personally, I'm not playing as much today as I typically do. We'll play, just a little bit here, a little bit lighter in general, but a good day to mix and match if that's something you're going to do. If it'd probably be a decent day, if you're going to like 50 max or 150 max or something like that, just because you want to cast a wide net, not too much that stands out, at least initially today. So at the pitcher position, wasn't too exciting of a day, honestly, at the pitcher position. We got some low end guys starting. We got some guys that are, just coming up from the minors, the guys that have a lot of concerns just in general. So the pitchers that I threw in my cheat sheet for today, I got Joe Ryan at $11,000. You can look at Justin Steele at the high end too, but going against that Padres lineup, that's kind of potent, is kind of scary at a one sense and a little bit more than I would like to pay for Justin Steele, although he's been pretty good so far to start the season. Charlie Morton's $9,800. He's kind of in play. Really hit or missed history versus him, the Marlins for him. So that is something to look out for. And then Griffin Cannon, who's ultimately who I ended up on. He's just kind of the cheapest of the options that look at least somewhat appealing at this point in time, $8,800. going against Oakland A's. So it's a pretty good matchup there. Not a lot of history versus these A's hitters. Obviously, he didn't really pitch much last year. It's not yesterday. For Griffin Canning, last year he didn't really pitch, so he doesn't have much history there versus these Oakland hitters. Obviously, a lot of young players for this Oakland team, not a lot of great players at that as well. Canning's been a little bit limited in terms of innings. Hopefully, he gets that 6 inning mark so we get the quality start at least out of him. If he can do that today at $8,800, he's going to look pretty good. But there is some upside to be had there. If that strikeout rate goes up a little bit, getting one against Oakland could be a good play as well. But really a day that you kind of just want to mix and match some pitchers. If you want to go after like an Eric Lauer against Detroit, you could do that as well. Although some of those hitters have him pretty decent in the past as well. At first base, went with Pete Alonso today. He's all the way up to $4,400. He is 3 for 6 versus Josiah Gray with 1 home run in his career. So some pretty good history there at that. Obviously, Josiah Gray did lead the league in home runs allowed last year, so that looks pretty good for the Mets today. Obviously, it will be a team that we'll look at stacking. Looking at the recent games for Pete Alonso, obviously he's 0 for his last 8, but before that was on a pretty good hot streak, so we'll see if he bounces back pretty good way today. Obviously, the history does favor him versus Josiah Gray today, excuse me. Then at third base, we're going right back to Nolan Arenado today. He did not end up playing yesterday, unfortunately, $3,200 still. So looks like the opener is probably going to be John Brebbia for the Giants team. At least that's what FanDuel has at this point in time. So not sure what the case is going to be with that, but Sean Manaea looks to be the primary pitcher today, just in general. Whether or not he's the starter or, the guy that comes in after opener remains to be seen. But Nolan Arenado, 3 for 6 with 1 home run for Sean Manaea in his career. Obviously, not the greatest start to the year for Nolan Arenado, as we kind of talked a little bit about last year, but hoping to bounce back in a pretty good way today. But still hasn't been a bad starting at $3,200. There's not going to be too often that you're going to get him at that price tag at any given point during the season. Then as we move down, we go to the outfield. We got Eloy Jimenez, $2,800. Going against Toronto Blue Jays, it's Jose Barrios today. He's 9 for 23 versus him in his career. So obviously some pretty good history there. He's got 1 home run versus him as well. Jose Barrios has not been very good, like the last year and a half, 2 years at this point in time. Eloy Jimenez was starting to hit the ball a little bit better as of late. Obviously 0 for 3 yesterday, unfortunately, but do like the upside that he can present. $2,800, pretty good price for him as well. You can look at some of these other White Sox hitters as well today. Just going against Barrios should be some pretty good upside there and some pretty good history as well. And then last but not least, kind of threw a cheap guy down here in Eric Haase. He has yet to hit a home run this year somehow, which seems crazy since he kind of hit home runs in bunches last year, it felt like. But he's only $2,300. The recent history, not like the greatest in the world, but as long as he's starting, he's going to look pretty good. Versus Eric Lauer in his career, he is 2 for 2 with 2 home runs. So do like the upside there. More of a GPP play than anything at this point in time, but a cheap value option that I do like on today's slate overall. But with that being said, like I said, it's going to be a pretty interesting slate. Probably one that I'm playing a little bit less today in general, but a good slate to kind of mix and match some different players, some different pitchers, some different stacks. Definitely a way to go about it, especially from the GPP side. But if you go with the 5 players that I do have listed, you have $13,500 remaining, just under $3,400 per player. So you can pretty much pay up for anyone that you want on tonight's slate. Or if you want to take a little bit more bounce brush, that's definitely fine as well. Another guy that I will highlight as well that isn't in my core pick, Wilson Contreras for the St. Louis Cardinals, the catcher. He does have 2 home runs in the past versus Sean Manaea. So another guy that we could be on the lookout for once again today. But with that being said, going to get off of the FanDuel side. We're going to get over to the bottom half of that cheat sheet, which I already mentioned, is up on the YouTube community tab. It's up on Facebook. It's up on Twitter. It will be up on Patreon after this video, as well as my MLB DFS notes. If you guys are interested in that, be sure to check that out. But the top GPP stacks that I do have for today, we have the Chicago White Sox going against Jose Barrios. A lot of these guys have hit him pretty well in the past, whether it is Eloy Jimenez, who is in the core picks, whether it is Andrew Vaughn, who is in the cheat sheet, whether it is Luis Robert, who is also in the cheat sheet. There's a couple different guys there. Gavin Sheets, if he does end up starting today, looks pretty good. Jake Berger as well. So lots of White Sox that we can attack today just in general. Elvis Andrus does have really good history versus him in the past, but he's been really struggling as of late. So that'd be a kind of tricky one, more of a GPP pay down option if you want to go there. And then we have the New York Mets. They have a lot of good history versus Josiah Gray, who is pitching today for the Washington Nationals. Obviously, talk about Gray a lot as he did give up the most home runs last year in all baseball from a pitcher perspective. Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Brandon Nimmo, Tommy Pham, Eduardo Escobar, if he ends up starting today, all have pretty good history versus him. So a lot of different options that you can attack from that Mets team. Then we got the Atlanta Braves. Looks like Brian Hoying will be the starter for the Marlins today. Not sure how deep he's going to pitch into the game. So it could end up being a bullpen game. Definitely like these Braves bats once again, whether it's Ronald Acuna. Obviously, there's not much history there versus Hoying, I believe. Matt Olson's got one hit versus him, and then Marcell Ozuna's got a hit for a home run versus him, but nobody's got more than one at bat against him in the past since he only pitched in relief versus the Braves last season. And then last but not least, we have the Toronto Blue Jays going against Mike Clevenger. Some of these guys have pretty good history versus him as well. Mainly like George Springer, Whit Merrifield. Those are the two biggest ones. But if you want to take some shots on some other guys, Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., you definitely feel free to do so as well. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I have in terms of MLB DFS core picks for today for the video for the live stream. If you guys have any questions related to MLB DFS, be sure to leave them down in the comments. Also, be sure to let me know your favorite play down there. As I already mentioned, I'll be listing any weather changes down in the comments as well, as many starting lineups as I can get to. Obviously, like I said, got a baseball game going on today, so about 4:30 time after that point in time, we'll be kind of more idle at that point. So anything before that, we'll have out. And if there's any changes to the core, I'll leave an updated core in the pinned comment down below. So definitely be sure to check that out as the day moves along. But with that being said, that's really all I have for today's video, for today's live stream. Once again, if you are brand new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, helping you guys with your DFS, primarily MLB DFS. XFL DFS just ended for the regular season, so I won't be doing as much content for that. But we'll be doing USFL DFS content, probably just doing the recap and the picks video together this week on Friday. Tomorrow, my goal is to kind of do some NFL mock draft stuff. So I am in the process of building out a 7-round NFL mock draft. Hopefully I'll have a video kind of live stream about talking about that just in general at some point tomorrow as well. I'll be on a couple different streams on Thursday night after the baseball game that we got going on that. So if you want to support me, you want to support those channels, I'll leave some links down to them below. Got some NFL draft prospect interviews up on the channel. If that's something that interests you, definitely be sure to check that out as well. A lot of different interesting players that I did get the opportunity to speak with. But with that being said, that's really all I have for today's video, for today's live stream. As always, do appreciate everyone taking the time out of their day, whether you're watching live or on replay. Definitely means a lot to me. And I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight.